read the
That's okay. No,
that
it's
it will
not.
clear itself, will it?
It's not populating. So, okay. So to start this meeting off, if we just go through the agenda, and the first item would be election of the chair. Okay. So have a nomination. Second that. So Ron,
Yes.
Ron's chair. Okay, brilliant.
Welcome. Good morning and welcome to this meeting with licensing man. I'm Councillor Ron Batstone and I'm the chair of the panel. Councillors Patrick O'Leary and Kira Bentley join me today on the panel. I've a few statements to make before we proceed with the meeting. Please, can everyone ensure that all mobile telephones and any other devices are switched to silent during the meeting? In the event of a fire, the Democratic Services Officer will lead attendees outside the building, where they should remain until directed to return. The meeting will resume once all attendees have returned to the meeting room and are ready to continue. If you have a question to ask in the meeting, you should raise your hand to alert me. Please do not speak unless invited to, and please do not interrupt other speakers. For those joining remotely, when you are not speaking, please ensure that your microphone is muted and your camera is turned off. Are there any other questions at this stage? Good. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. The procedure for this meeting was included in the agenda pack. Could I ask if everyone has understood the procedure that will be followed, or does anyone have any questions they wish to ask at this stage?
Is there a time limit on presenting your case? Like, do you have...
Oh, we don't have a time limit on this, but do try to keep your remarks as short as possible. I will now begin this item and invite the licensing officer, Richard French, to present their report.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning. The application before the licensing panel today is an application for the grant of a premises license pursuant to the Licensing Act 2003. Premises where a license is sought is proxy to house 21 to 27 Oxford, Abingdon, OX14 5AJ. The applicant is stated on the paperwork as KAT Enterprises Abingdon No. 2 Limited, sole director, listed on Companies House as Mr. Timothy Payne. The licence for activities applied for are summarised at paragraph 3.4 of your report and consist of various forms of entertainment, including the showing of films, live music, recorded music, forms of dance, from 0800 hours or 8 AM until 2 AM the following day, 7 days a week. The sale of alcohol on and off the premises has also been applied for these times. The opening hours requested are also 8 AM to 2 AM the following morning, 7 days a week. Panel will see from paragraph 3.5 a number of non-standard timings have also been applied for, including an additional hour when the clocks change, and for on 15 occasions a year, the premises be permitted to show live sporting events outside of any permitted licence for hours, commencing 1 hour prior to the transmission of an event and ceasing 1 hour after the event. During the 28-day consultation period, a number of representations were received. The panel will note from paragraph 3.6 and Appendix B that a representation was received from the Council Environmental Protection Team, who are largely concerned with noise nuisance. Amanda Welsh from the Council's Environmental Protection Team is here today and will address the panel in respect of that representation. 3 other representations were received from members of the public. Paragraph 3.9 of the report summarises those representations and also gives the relevant appendix reference in your report. Sally Rogers is here today to speak to her representation attached to Appendix D, and Sam Horrell is also here to speak to his representation attached to Appendix E. The report sets out the relevant parts of the Council's licensing policy and the Secretary of State's guidance to which the Council must have regard to when carrying out its licensing functions. The applicant has submitted some additional information which was received by the Council on the 1st of October. I believe this has been distributed to the parties. This consists of a document containing some licence conditions, some photos, a map, and what looks like, to me, a list of gov.uk business rates, pages, and a list of premises, but I'm sure Mr. Payne, who is here representing the applicant, can illuminate us all further on that later on. Chair, unless I can assist you in any way in relation to the contents of the report, I've just outlined and I have nothing further to add at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's many applicants. Are you leading on the?
I am indeed, sir. Yes, indeed. I'm John Payne. I'm a lawyer representing the applicant. I'll let those to my left introduce themselves if you like, and they can explain who they are and what they do.
Well, at this stage, do you have any questions for the?
No, I don't. I'm grateful for that, Mr. Finch's report.
Does anybody else have any questions for the licensing officer? And if there are no further questions, I will now invite the applicant to present their case.
Can I just check?
Yes.
Do the panel have any questions for the
Oh,
licensing?
do the panel have questions at this stage?
I just drew attention that we're working from our laptops, obviously, not, emailing our friends. Can be a bit distracting sometimes, I know.
So, Mr. Payne, would you present the case for the applicant?
I'm glad I did attend a hearing once where the chairman spent most of their time on what was Twitter, sending messages, and obviously was slightly admonished for doing so afterwards. It's probably best at this stage if I do some introductions, or if I just allow along the table to do introductions, because at the moment you're faced with an array of faces and you don't know who they all are. So let me start on my left.
Hi, so I'm Kylie Gale. I am DPS and acting manager of VOWH.
Tim Payne, and I'm the director of the business. And Andrew Fudge, part of the business and part owner.
Thank you. The last face is probably one that you recognise. It's not part of the applicant. But, I'm grateful. Thank you. As you've heard, there has been some branding done to this, and the name of the premise is intended to be the Earl of Abingdon. That's the name of the premise. You heard that just mentioned. Since the application was submitted, there have been some productive discussions with both environmental health and with the police. We're pleased to have managed to negotiate with the police both before the application and whilst the application was in place, some amendments to that application which are on the submissions that you receive. And we've also engaged with environmental health to deal with representations that they have raised. I'm conscious that my colleague wrote to environmental health is waiting for a reply back on the last set of proposals. But just to outline where we are with the application, because it has changed a little from the original application that you've got in your papers. The amendments are contained within the additional papers that we have. And just to be clear on the times to start off with, what is being applied for is Friday till Saturday, 8 AM till 2 AM for the licensable activities, with closing time, as you imagine, 30 minutes later. Sunday between 8 and midnight, Sunday to Thursday, 8 to midnight, with the exception of bank holidays, Christmas period, of course, and major sporting events, which are notified in advance. And this is something that has been discussed and agreed with the police, which would be the original times that I gave. So that's the application that you have before you in those terms. You also have a set of conditions that have been proposed. And it appears to me that I'll let Environment Health speak for themselves, but the main disagreement is in relation to the carrying out of a noise assessment survey beforehand. You'll hear, I think, in a moment that the premises have already been open for a short time using temporary event notices, and those events have been successful, and let's believe that there have been no issues arising from that. So the main issue from my perspective is that condition which suggests that a survey should be carried out before business operates. I'll address you in summing up the reasons why in law that is not a condition that can be imposed, but just to emphasise that at the moment I think that's the only disagreement we've got, assuming that Environmental Health are happy with the hours, and obviously those that have made representations to members of the public, that's a slightly different matter. Now, as part of the pack, Mr. French alluded to it, you've been provided with a list of premises which are indeed from the non-domestic rateable values in the area from the Gov website. And that is really a piece of evidence which is important for you to show, and I'm sure you know the area very well because it's quite a central location, that the majority of premises in this area are not residential at all. That's not to diminish the importance of presence of domestic premises, but just to dispel the suggestion that's being made that this is a residential area, because clearly it's not. There are far many more commercial and retail premises in this area than there are residential. The residential number is relatively small, and you have that number there. You have a number of photographs which show the outside of the premises, and you have an overhead as well, which hopefully is helpful to you in terms of identifying the premises. But as I say, I know you are aware of the area. It's not 2 minutes down the road, well, maybe 5 minutes down the road, walking. So that's the application that you had before you. I think it's probably helpful if I pass along to those to my right, to my left indeed, to your right, to explain a little bit about the premises, what the vision is, how this premises fits in, because you'll know that Coxeter House, in which this is based, has been, to a greater or lesser extent, vacant for some time. There have been various uses that have filled from time to time, but the plan here is to get this corner back into use. I will just take one last thing to say. Mr. Payne to my left is no relation. So could I pass to my left then to whoever is going to explain a little bit about the concept?
Okay, that's myself. So we just want to start off by saying there was a piece published in the Oxford Mail this week about Stratton's reopening in Abingdon. I first and foremost want to address that it is definitely not a nightclub. The license we're applying for with the 2 AM is not to be used as a nightclub. We expect that we will not have anyone entering the premises after 11 o'clock on any day of the week. And that is purely just in case there's a good vibe and basically just to see people out, you know, so we're not putting people out en masse at a certain point. If you don't mind me reading something called Pre-Prepared, just about our vision. So the Earl of Abingdon, something which has been sort of 10 years in the making for us, really. We've worked in the town, I've worked in the licensed premises for the last 20 plus years in Abingdon, and especially in the last sort of 5 to 6, seen a massive decline in people in premises, and just basically the high street not fulfilling needs of people anymore. We wanted a concept which stuck to the premise of the old-fashioned, although it's a new building, the old-fashioned pub. So a meeting place, a place where people come, darts, cribbage, eventually Aunt Sally and such in the area. The investment is large in the local area, which again, I went to various meetings where there was, I think it was last summer or summer before, Abingdon 2020 plus, where there was different areas which planning that we're looking at improving in Abingdon. Coxeter House was one of those, along with the Net and various areas in Abingdon where we thought we can improve. The investment, again, like I say, in trying to create jobs in the community and sort of just, again, being able to showcase, there's a lot of local real ale being produced now, being able to put somewhere in the middle of Abingdon, which is a showpiece for these sort of things. Again, we've seen such positivity. We have traded this weekend under a temporary event notice, where we've actively encouraged people to come through, look at what we're doing, you know, try and allay fears of people locally that it is a nightclub or it is, you know, something more than it is, where what we're really trying to produce is, you know, a pub, a great British pub, where people come, meet, can sample various ales, as well as lagers, watch the sport and just catch up on the week. Yeah, we do intend on doing live music. Again, we will work with anyone locally to see the sound. It isn't like we've got big open patio windows anywhere. None of the windows actually open on the ground floor of Coxeter's, and we've looked at the noise and such, where we we feel that we can, again, working with local people and having an open dialogue, that we can basically make that not an issue to anyone. And again, with leaving at night, taxi rank and bus stop, nobody has to go past any residential building. So we're hoping again to get people out at the end of the night without creating an issue. But I think to wrap up, from my perspective, it is a pub, it is a local community pub, it's a community hub where we'll be sponsoring local teams and holding. We've had a lot of interest this weekend in meeting places for various clubs. That's what we hope to achieve.
Thank you.
So you have any more presentations?
Sharon, I think that probably sets the scene for this particular premises. You've got a package of conditions which have been fashioned and then honed by discussions with the police and from the contribution of environmental health. We've taken into account the representations that have been made, and that's the application you have. I'm more than happy to deal with any questions that you might wish to put.
Thank you. Can I start with panel members? Councillor, do you have any questions? One of the main concerns obviously is noise. And I think you mentioned that it didn't have to be done, a noise survey for the application.
Right,
Did I pick that up wrong?
let me explain that in
Please.
perhaps in a bit more detail. It's not quite right. So what environmental health have requested is a condition that a formal noise survey is undertaken of the premises using an expert, I believe, to give a report on the structure of the building and whether it's capable of containing the sound. Well, we know that building has been used in the past because everybody knows that it was used as a nightclub. And so there were, to my knowledge, no issues or significant issues about noise outbreak that would be pertinent to this particular use, which is a much lower use. So it would be wrong to say that there's no assessment being carried out, because quite clearly there has. What has been done is that those running the business have carried out an assessment themselves. They've looked at the types of thing that will occur within the premises and the dispersal of that, and they've put together a noise management plan. We have a copy of it here. We haven't, I think, provided it to you, but there's a comprehensive noise management plan which looks at how noise is controlled within the premises and how dispersal occurs, because of course any premises that's open late into the evening has the potential of causing noise nuisance as people leave. That is dealt with through the dispersal plan. We've got a copy of that plan there.
So this is not being disseminated?
No. I'm just saying that there is one that is in existence, and verbally, I'm not handing it in, don't worry. I just want to give you an outline of what has been considered to answer the question. So the plan goes through and allocates key responsibilities to individuals within the premises. So those who are organising the dispersal, those who are controlling the music that's being played. And there is a dispersal policy which talks about last orders being called 30 months before closing, as you would expect. It talks about trying to stagger the departure of customers, making sure that people don't leave in one block, because any premises closing in the early hours of the morning, the last thing that they want to do is to throw everybody out at one time. That is a recipe for disaster. Time and again, that's been shown. So the plan here is to get people to disperse slowly by reducing the level of any music being played, by encouraging people to leave and getting them to leave in a quiet fashion. That will in part be done by people supervising at the door. It will part be done by providing assistance in getting transport away from the premises, so taxis. And the plan goes through in even more detail about how noise will be managed within the premises. Now, quite clearly, things need to be done, and we need to make sure that the neighbours are not disturbed. And that is why there are some conditions that have been proposed which go to the heart of what is sought here. Let me just try and find it.
Hey, while you're looking at, you said you're not handing this in, but actually it's obviously quite critical to your argument. I think it would be, it's obviously at the
I'm
the
content to do
chairs,
so.
yes, and it would have been, I'm not sure why it would not have been disseminated, presumably it was prepared in advance. Has it been
No,
submitted?
it has to be, if there's going to be a submission.
It has to be exactly.
It has to be in
has
agreement
to be
to the parties.
precisely.
Indeed, which is why I didn't try and force it to
But
council.
As it is quite critical
I've
to
raised-
the overall consideration by the panel, and I think
Well,
it might be helpful, but we would obviously, yes, need agreement, but you're talking to something that nobody
well,
else
you
here
haven't got the
has any
detail of
knowledge
it,
of.
indeed, and I appreciate that entirely. We have copies of it here, so if there is agreement, and I was anticipating that this might raise as an issue, it would be possible to provide a number of copies for councillors and indeed anybody else that wishes to see it. I had hoped to speak to the Environment Health immediately before the hearing, but we didn't. Unfortunately.
Right,
Passed.
when it's actually prepared then, was it?
The last few days. Well, you couldn't see when the email was sent in. I mean, the EHO, sorry, just to answer the question, the EHO sent us these requests reasonably late on the submission, and I prepared the noise management. I sent it to Tim, and unfortunately, it just hasn't been forwarded. We can get an exact date. It certainly wasn't this morning. It was. I mean, we can look at when it was. Yeah, if you need us to, if that's critical to you, you can look at where the email was sent.
Right. I think it's over to the chair now to decide whether this is something you would want to put to other people, whether it be.
Can I follow up my original question?
Yes.
And one of the things was that next time to come in and assess the sound. And you're giving mitigating things. You're in the space, you're doing that, and have you. Well, when it's coming from yourself, it'd be, sorry if I'm a bit rude, but self-interest. Whereas to have an expert to come in and do a sound survey, but you're resistant to that. Why would that be?
Well, there are a number of reasons for that. Number one, it takes some time to organise such a survey. It can take a matter of weeks to organise that, and the premises are keen to open as soon as possible. Secondly, there is the cost. But overriding all of that, what we say is it's not necessary. And why do we say it's not necessary? Well, it's not necessary because there is a limiting factor, and it really doesn't matter whether there's a noise survey or not, because what's been proposed is that the manager of the premises shall ensure that no noise shall emanate from the premises, nor vibration be transmitted through the structural premises, which gives rise to undue disturbance, amounting to a nuisance, the prevention of nuisance objective there, to local residents or businesses. So it doesn't really matter what the structure is like. It doesn't matter whether it's made of paper or whether it's made of insulated material. The business, if it has this condition imposed, cannot play music so loud that it will cause a disturbance. That is the fundamental point. It is addressing the thing that is objectionable. So, and there is no need for that survey.
What you just said, professional qualifications for you to decide whether it's too loud or whatever. Do you have any professional qualifications?
No, I don't hold any professional qualifications. All I can say to you is I don't know how else to say it. I've been outside the building when we've played music, and I can't hear anything. There is, I'm honest, I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way. I mean, we would have undertaken anything. Sorry,
I think we play music louder than it would ever be anticipated. We would play it within the building, and you still couldn't hear outside. And whilst that's not a scientific test, we felt that we went beyond the level where we would be trading it, as it were, and there still wasn't any vibration or noise outside. And we did that at sort of 6 o'clock in the evening. We did that at 10 o'clock in the evening, and even at 10 o'clock in the evening, you still drowned out by the noise of the traffic, which wasn't a lot of that time of night.
Yeah, I think we understand that. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yes, I'm a bit concerned that we've got lots of additional information here that we didn't have when we were.
Well, it's yes, the dispersal plan they did. So
Yes.
Just check as well,
Yeah.
because I'm working are the public papers, which doesn't mention these amended trading hours. Have I missed that? Was that been?
The hours that you stipulated this morning, you said it's been amended.
Yes.
It's different than what I.
You should have a set
There
of
was
stuff.
It's in the additional, these additional
Yeah,
papers.
that's correct, yes.
And then knowing when
That
it
was.
Thank you. It's helpful to have you here that we can understand you and see the whites of your eyes if you like. So I will be very interested to hear what residents have got to say. As an ex-licensee, I kind of know a little bit about the business and I'm a little bit confused. So we've got a license that wants to go until 2 in the morning playing music, quite loud potentially, but we're not worried about the noise pollution, and we'll hear from the environment, I'm sure, about that. But we've also got, well, we want to be a pub playing darts and being a community asset. So, which is
Can I answer that?
course, yeah.
Okay, so the licenses in Abingdon from the Weatherspoons that plays no music is till 2 o'clock. Most other licensed premises have got these sort of times. It is not always, and very few of them will use these licenses. But it's there to ensure that if there is a particular event, that every time we don't have to go through, various options. The last thing we want is to be having an evening and then overstepping licensing laws. But I'm saying it's in line with every other licensed premises in Abingdon as far as I've ever been involved with.
Do you see your trading till 2 AM at those weekends being advertised?
No,
Or do you see it being 11 or 12?
as we said, our
Extensions and when?
hours, I mean, it's like the 8 AM. The 8 AM is basically there for when we see horse racing events, which is quite regular, people meeting up beforehand and going away. The general trade hour will not be 8 AM. 10 AM will be the earliest we open, unless it's specifically hired by somebody to come in early.
So it's likely if I looked on your website in 6 months' time, it's going to say open at 10
10
AM,
AM till midnight.
close at
7
12. But there's a big horse race on Saturday, and so we're going to wait until
I think the point you make
2
is
on the
some,
16th.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, the thing is with 10s, they're brilliant, and we can use them, but you can only use them for 21 days a year. So, and they have to have time limits, and so they don't cover what we need to use. If there's 15 days where someone wants us to open earlier, and 10 when people want to open late, we've got no play with 10s at all.
And your 15 events, what do you see those being? Are they like major?
So boxing is something which has proved popular, although they're nearly pricing us out of us being able to do it, to be honest with you. And you also you've got World Cups, which are football World Cups, which are played all around the world at different times. Especially like the next one coming up is in America, Canada, Mexico. So it's those major events. It's not horse race on Tuesday afternoon. It's those major events where, again, most of the town will be doing stuff, but we're trying to cover ourselves for those instances.
And were you doing live music events at the time?
We intend to do live music, yeah, that's on the proposal. But again, not raves. I can't express enough, we're not looking to be a late night venue. We just want that leeway.
Thank you. Yes, one thing I'm a bit concerned about, you don't have much in way of outdoor facilities for smokers.
Is that to me again? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so having worked in the town for the last 20 years, our outdoor smoking, which actually is within our leased area, is 10 times more than anywhere else I've ever worked in Abingdon. Right down to everywhere on the high street, from the Graves to Cupassa to the Tipsy Mercer to the chemist. They all have zero of their own space. We've got facilities to have more than 20 people enclosed at any one time. There's actually a meter around the whole building, which is Coxett's land. And again, the path outside the building is about 8 foot, which compared with anywhere else in the town centre is significant.
If it helps, there's a colour photograph of the outside of the building.
Yes, I do know the building.
Yeah.
To show off.
Yeah, so from that respect, and obviously to the left of the building as well, it goes round into the car park in front of what's now the new pet shop. That front of that is also part of our use, which is a bricked off area from the road as well. So that we feel there is ample, more than we would need, I would say, to be honest with you.
Do their panel members have any further questions? In that case, can I ask the licensing officer, do you have any questions?
Just a few points of clarification. I'll throw them all that way, and whoever wants to answer can answer. As part of your fire risk assessment, have you risk assessed, or as part of your business plan, what is the capacity that you believe you can get into that building?
Should I deal with that? Essentially, there has been a risk assessment carried out, and the difficulty with fire risk assessments is that they do vary depending on the use. So it depends on how many tables are there, depends on the activities that are undertaken. So for each activity that is different, that will be calculated. I believe there was a calculation. Do you know what the capacity was for the weekend?
120 based on seating.
Okay, so as part of your business plan for when you purchase the building, are you obviously because you want to make money, that's fair enough. So is 120 your top end, or is it your low end? I mean, could we get up to 500 people in there?
No, no, I mean
that's what
okay, so realistically, we laid the building out again, so seating is at the forefront of it. So we haven't left overly space for a big congregation. But 120 would make us extremely happy if we had that many people in the whole building. So that would be a figure which we would work off. And again, the areas are ample. With the fire risk assessment, walking through and making sure that whatever area you're in, you have two exits, no matter what part of the building you're in. All those sort of things. So cope with that number would be easily sufficient.
Okay. No, I'm just because I'm still sort of not confused, but just trying to get a sort of general gist of what your sort of day-to-day operation is going to be, and if there's going to be 120, 500 people being turfed out at 2 AM on a Saturday, for example.
I mean, the reality of that is it wouldn't hold 500. We wouldn't want 500. Every risk assessment that we're doing is based on what we feel, knowing the area and the capacity of people to get out. We're not expecting any sort of hundreds of people.
And then the other question, the clarification point I had. So on the non-standard timings in the application form, you've got this thing about 15 occasions per year, provided you notify the police in advance. We want to show sporting events. So let's take the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Which is the most obvious one. So obviously, if you were granted a license from 8 AM till 2 AM, say it was a Saturday night, I know it's usually on a Sunday, but anyway. You want 1 hour before transmission and 1 hour after transmission. And given how long the Super Bowl goes on for, with all of the stuff that goes on before it, the actual game itself, and the stuff opening after it, sorry, isn't there a potential there that you could be open pretty much all night?
I mean, there is a potential in that respect. I think that's the only event I think that would appeal to. And again, having watched the last sort of 10 years that interest has grown, watching where places do show it in Oxford is very much how we would run it. Would be a ticketed event for anything like that. So we'd know the exact amount of people, we'd know what they're in there for. This wouldn't be people in there from lunchtime trying to see the end of the Super Bowl. There would be a definitive break in that.
But in theory, though, there could be 120 people being left out at 7 o'clock in the morning. The Super Bowl goes on for that long.
Yeah, I mean, if that's, yeah, I mean, that's no different to, yeah, anywhere else. But yeah, it's obviously a concern, but that is once a year. I think if anyone had 120 people in central London for the Super Bowl, they'd be very happy. I mean, you know, our hours, the idea with the 15 licenses, we haven't even considered the Super Bowl, is the honesty. The things we are concentrating on would be World Cups and boxing events, which a pub we've run recently with our licenses, the boxing overran. We couldn't show people the boxing we paid £500 to show the event for, and people have to leave because we'd overrun on our times.
Yeah.
So it's trying to put these things in place now, so we're covered and we're not overstepping marks, breaking licensing, having issues with police.
Oh, no, I understand that. And obviously, it probably would be preferable to applying for 10 event notices. So I do understand what you're kind of driving at. I'm just kind of looking at the Super Bowl was the one that immediately sprung to mind as well. That in that case, you're going to be open all night, and whether you've got any additional things that you're going to take into consideration at that time of night, or if you have got people in there from 2 AM till 7 AM, you know, that kind of.
I mean, that's what we're saying, is if it was a Super Bowl event like that, it would be a ticket event. We'd know exactly how many people are coming. And again, like we've said in the license, we would endeavour to make sure that when they're leaving, there's transport laid on for them or arranged.
Okay. Those are just a clarification. Okay, thank you.
Just
Yes, you can come back on. Yes.
the temporary event notices are for those one-off occasions. Yeah, we know that they're paying to navigate around, but how often do you think these not very temporary events are going to take place?
The World Cup's going forward are 48 games
Yeah.
in the group stages.
So why not stick with the?
You couldn't categorically cover them with tens with the timescale of having to have the distance between tens as well. You physically couldn't cover certain events properly. You know, you'd come down to missing certain days, you'd come down to missing certain games, because obviously tens can't run consecutively.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other questions for the applicant at this stage?
Can I just clarify something? You
Yes.
are still applying at 3.5 for this additional hour when the clocks change. Is that still within the?
Yes, I mean, that's a fairly standard arrangement with licensed premises that are open while the clocks change.
Right. I think.
There's some questions to my
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I had a clarifying question about your standing outside listening to the music, couldn't hear it. Was that through a PA or was that a live band?
It's our PA system, and we had somebody in with a guitar.
But do you intend to have like a full rock band?
The premises doesn't support a full rock band.
Okay, 'cause, like,
The live music aspect, we'd be looking at sort of two-piece.
Like, would you be similar to the brewery tap because they regularly have full rock band?
Yeah, no. I mean, the brewery tab has substantial bands inside and out at times. That's not in our plan. I mean, obviously, the outside areas of ours will never be used for music or entertainment. We've got substantial area for smoking, but there isn't substantial area to do outside events.
Right, thank you.
Actually, I had another
question.
I had another question about the document you sent, which had the list of residences and businesses. So my house on that was listed as an office and premises. So I kind of question the validity of
Yes, I
what
agree.
your document puts forward.
Well, Chair, I'm conscious that's a statement rather than a question. All I can say is that
Okay,
document was
I'll phrase it as a question.
from the government website. That is the official record.
Agreed, but I would agree with Sam.
Sorry.
That some of those premises, they might have something on the ground floor, but there are flats above.
Maybe that's something you would pick up in your presentation. It's not a direct question. You don't have to, if
No, I
you have
will,
an
I will.
opportunity, but if it's not an actual question, if you could pick that up.
Okay, I think. In close questions down to the applicant at this stage, we can come back later at the summary stage, I think. So now, we're looking for other presentations, and I think the first one we want.
Chair, I do wonder if we should deal with this dispersal, if this is going to be, because people might need an opportunity to look
Yes,
at it.
it's
I think
true.
we could.
Yeah, I think that is an eminently sensible time to break so that those who made representations can cover it in their presentation if they wish to.
So you're suggesting we should have a break?
I think we need to, you've got copies, we can do more copies if necessary,
Yeah.
but you look, yes, you come armed with the copies of these that we could.
Well, we've got one each in our packs, but yeah.
Okay.
Does everyone agree?
Well, I think do we not need the panel to vote to agree on that?
I'm sorry, sorry, I'm chair. I'm conscious that one of your members has now.
Yes,
Yes,
written.
exactly.
We
Yeah.
need to, we do need
We
to.
need to
spend-
wait till
I'd like to raise something, it isn't, it just, could we also see the risk assessments that you're talking about?
Given
If
what
we
those were.
decide-
Can I just ask, is how long is the meeting going to be? Because I will.
We don't.
I suggest we just,
Is there a chance that I could at some stage say my piece because I'm meant to be a citizen of it?
can I just answer you? You will come shortly after the proposed break if that
Okay,
goes ahead.
that would
So
be
it
great.
won't be long.
Thank you very much.
Just to reassure you, and everyone will get their chance to
Yeah,
speak.
that's lovely. Thank you.
So we've got our noise management, we've got dispersal policy, and the licensing objectives.
And do we have enough copies of those? I'm just
Probably 4 copies of-
utilising time.
I'm conscious that the risk assessment, wasn't raised as an
No,
issue,
it wasn't.
and that's
It
why
was,
we're-
so I think
that's why we don't have copies.
if
But-
you've done it, it helps your case, because it shows that you will
Indeed, but it also
take
helps.
all things into account.
It also helps our case that the fire officers looked at this and has not raised any issues with it.
That is.
So that is the stop point we would say, as far as that's concerned.
So if we have just clarification of what the extra information is, and then the panel should vote on if they want to pause to look at it. Okay, so.
So, Chair, I have a number of documents here. This first one is the dispersal policy for the premises. The second one is the noise management policy for the premises. It's just those two, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so
Those are the two documents I think it might be helpful for you to see.
Didn't mention another one, I think.
Yeah, the licensing objectives.
Oh, yes,
The
that's,
4 main licensing objectives, just our key points on those.
I don't think that's necessarily
I
a
think it
document.
helps give us a flavour of the
It's
pre-work
probably-
that's gone on.
I think it's probably outside. I think we
Yeah.
really should probably.
It's an
do-
aid memoir is the other
Yes.
document for that business as part of their pack, but it's probably not necessary for the purposes of this hearing. But we've got nothing to hide. You can write and see if there was agreement.
So can I propose that we have a 10-minute break to allow people to have a look at these documents?
Okay, what's the panel's thoughts on that?
Yes,
In
yeah.
agreement?
Are we agreed? 10-minute break?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 more. There was a my chance statement, if anyone wants to add this.
I'd like to see that.
Yes.
Give us time.
Sorry, what's that one?
This is just what I'm gonna say. That's a difficult copy of it to read
Right.
and speak.
Why not?
Yeah.
We can listen to what you say.
Okay, so I suggest I
I don't know what they're
show
asking for.
attendees back to the seating area in reception. And then I'll bring you back in 10 minutes time. I can assist with any copies if anything's needed. Okay, is that okay with
Thank
everyone?
you. Yeah, brilliant.
So there are 3 more copies of. the
Do
two
they
policies.
actually need to leave, really? I'm
I
not
don't-
sure that we
It's up to
do
you.
need to. I think
Oh,
if we want to stay here and read,
Yes.
I don't think there's any reason to, we're not going into closed sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 3 more copies.
Sorry?
of there,
Might be
so
more
then I'll
efficient.
leave you.
Do you want to go outside?
No, to
Stay
do it,
here?
to stay
Yes,
here.
I think so. I mean, it's really,
Go if
it's
you want to
just
go,
reading.
we'll come back in 10 minutes.
I'm just conscious, that time is.
I am, yes, and I think
Therefore,
going and coming
Yeah,
is
it
not
just adds
particularly
extra 5
useful
minutes,
use of
yeah.
time.
So as long as it's done in silence, really, because it's a kind of pause in the.
Pause in the
Yeah.
Can
broadcast.
we suspend it live?
Yes, we-
Susie, could you just suspend this for 10 minutes? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask environmental health to make a presentation, please?
Thank you. I will just run through the points of representations that we've made. So the difficulty we are having with this application is that it's been submitted prior to a planning application for change of use. This means we do not have any data on the acoustic performance of the building or if it's suitable for the activities that have been proposed by the applicant. We have concerns about the premises opening from 8 AM until 2 AM, Monday to Sunday. There are residential properties in close proximity, and we feel that the proposed hours for licensable activities, in particular live and recorded music, as well as amplified sound, may impact on people's sleep, especially in what could be a normal working or school day, and therefore proposed a reduction in the opening hours up to midnight, Sunday to Thursday, to prevent a public nuisance occurring. We have also requested that several additional licensing conditions are attached to control potential noise nuisance from the premises and to regulate dispersal to prevent public nuisance occurring. These conditions can be found in Appendix B of the agenda. Condition A requires the applicant to commission an acoustic survey and design and implement a scheme of soundproofing for the premises prior to any regulated entertainment or activities exempt under the Live Music Act taking place. As previously mentioned, we do not have any data on the acoustic performance of the building. The potential for noise problems is largely determined by the location and structure of the property, as well as the activities proposed. The structure of the premises was not originally designed as a late-night drinking establishment with regulated entertainment, and it is likely that additional soundproofing measures are necessary to prevent the public nuisance occurring. The aim of this condition is to ensure that appropriate noise control measures are designed to limit noise outbreak from the premises. The applicant's solicitor has raised concerns regarding this condition as proposed in respect of the requirement for an acoustic survey prior to activities exempt under the Live Music Act. The Live Music Act removed the requirement for licensing of a wide range of entertainment between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM. This does not, however, reduce the risk of noise nuisance occurring. Nonetheless, we would be happy for this condition, as proposed, to be amended to remove reference of activities exempt under the Live Music Act, but the applicant should still carry out an acoustic assessment prior to any regulated entertainment and amplified sound to prevent a public nuisance occurring. If this assessment is not carried out, we would have concerns about any possible noise outbreak from the premises and the impact from any regulated entertainment or amplified sound on the local residents, given the unknown acoustic performance of the building. Condition B was proposed to ensure that the management effectively manages the premises so that no noise emanating from it gives rise to undue disturbance, and condition C to devise and implement a noise management plan, which I acknowledge we have. Thank you. The aim of the plan is to outline any potential noise sources on the premises, the mitigation measures, and the monitoring, maintenance and recording methods that would be used to deal with any issues should they arise. Condition E was recommended to ensure that external doors and windows are kept shut whilst entertainment is taking place to reduce the likelihood of noise breakout from the venue and reduce the effect on residents. And condition H to ensure that a member of staff is available to respond to any nuisance related complaints during opening hours should they arise. Further conditions, D, F, G and I, were proposed to manage outside areas of the premises and to initiate active measures to disperse customers at the end of the night. I know we've spoken about there is going to be a smoking area, but we still have no information where this is going to be located. Noise from customers on the street outside the premises is likely to cause unreasonable disturbance to nearby residential properties, given the requested opening hours. If these areas are not effectively managed, noise and disturbance from people outside can cause public nuisance, even when those people are not behaving badly. We have also requested a condition that no drinking vessels are allowed to be taken outside of the premises to reduce the potential for customers to linger longer than necessary. We also have no information on how the applicant is intending to manage the dispersal of customers at the end of the night. The current information states that the licensable activities will terminate at 2 AM and the premises will close at the same time. If this is the case, again, there is potential for noise disturbance if a large number of customers exit the premises at the same time. Thank you. That concludes my
Thank you.
comment.
Panel members, do you have any questions? No, Mark.
I have a question about the refreshments in and outdoors. I wonder how that, you anticipate that.
Sorry,
That's
this is
the
questions to the
environmental
environmental.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Health.
So do you have any questions from the environmental health officer? Good.
Can I
No.
just clarify that additional condition you were referring to, which isn't here in I, is it, about vessels
Yeah, we
being put
put
outside?
taken outside.
Oh. Right, well, there's condition D, but it seems to be something further than that.
So we've got I, the DPS or nominated staff shall monitor customers outside the smoking area to ensure noise is kept to a minimum. Would have included vessels in that.
We didn't see that.
Oh, okay, sorry, I will,
It's on page 38.
okay.
Those conditions are
okay.
also replicated in the schedule that you have from us in the supplementary papers.
Sorry, it was condition D, so imagine it's showing shall know that's no openings of glasses or other items belonging to the other premises.
This dispersal policy, which we've just seen, does that satisfy some of your
I
requirements? Does it?
haven't had eyes on them, I just had eyes on the noise management.
Two. Well, they
Oh, got it here.
are they there?
Oh, okay.
Oh, dispersal thing.
Sorry, I was with the noise management.
If you haven't read it, I'm not going to,
Okay.
but I suspect he does.
Chairman,
Read some of it.
if it helps to put this on, the requirement that is sought from environmental health that a policy is prepared and provided to environmental health.
Yes.
Effectively, that can be done in the next 30 seconds, and therefore that condition complied with.
Thank you. Does the panel have any further questions? No. So, Richard, do you have any questions of environmental health? I don't. No. Does any other party have any questions at this stage?
Well, Chair, I do, but it's perhaps just to try and clarify what is being sought, because I'm conscious that the officer's report initially didn't really take account of what's already been agreed. But there were some changes and some very fundamental changes that were being suggested to condition A that's been proposed on page 37.
That's a question.
Well, it is. The question that I have is whether the officer is now content that condition A should just be that a report is produced and that no regulated entertainment should take place until that report has been produced.
We would like to see the report.
I think that's a yes. The reason that I put it like that, I do need to explain this, is because what I've just suggested is very different to what is sought in the condition A, because condition A talks about any regulated entertainment and effectively licensable activities in the whole, and also the important point about having that report approved. What is now being sought is that a report should be prepared. If the answer given is correct, a report should be prepared, and until that report has been prepared and submitted, there should be no regulated entertainment, that is to say, live music, recorded music, which is not exempt.
So our concerns are that live recorded music could potentially cause a nuisance, and we are looking to prevent this. All parties have to promote the licensing objectives and prevent issues that undermine them from taking place in the first place, not later after a license has been granted. So we are looking we are looking to prevent nuisance from taking place in the first place.
So shall we just clarify, you would want that submitted report to be approved rather than just, you're looking for just submission?
Yes, and I'll address this in summing up, because that approval process would be ultra vires.
Would be what, sorry?
Ultra vires, outside the law. It wouldn't be a condition that could be imposed on the license. I'll give you some case law on that later.
Okay, do we have any further questions for the environmental officer at this stage? In that case, can I ask Sally Rogers to make her presentation.
So, it's not really a presentation, but, I obviously don't want your premises to not succeed. I don't have any problem with that. But despite everything we see here, there is a group of houses that are directly opposite Coxeter House. You know, I know that you produced the thing about the rateable values, but there are quite a few houses. Mine looks directly onto Ox Street. It's listed, therefore I can't have double glazing in my windows. Ox Street is already a street which has a lot of bad behaviour down it, to be honest. On Fridays and Saturdays, it can go on, including 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. The taxi rank is directly opposite. I think it's in front of number 7 Ox Street. And just people waiting for taxis there can cause a real nuisance at all times of night. People are drunk. They lose their inhibitions about yelling and screaming and shouting and all the rest of it. And I have to say that one more licensed premise in that area directly opposite us is of concern to me, and I know to my neighbours as well. And I really appreciate the fact that obviously you've thought about it, but the reality makes me concerned. Not just the noise bleed that we might get, although you said that there isn't any, but also with the best will in the world, it's very hard to corral people who've taken a lot of drink on board and are, dispersing. And that really worries me, because it's really unpleasant. Having to listen to it, and you're asleep, and then suddenly somebody's yelling. I just feel that one more premise, is not good for where we are. That's it really. It's just to say, obviously you've talked about all of these things, and I really appreciate that, you're trying to do your best, but in the end, I think controlling people who've had too much to drink is very hard. That's it really.
Thank you. And do you have any questions?
I understand it was a licensed premises previously.
What was a licensed
The
premise?
building, is that correct?
It was certainly before my time, but I understand that it was where the nightclub was. But I moved 3 years ago and there was nothing there. I think
it was actually a nightclub. Yeah, I think so. I can't say exactly,
About
but it,
2012.
Yeah, well, there you go. I am aware of the fact that if you choose to live on Ox Street, which I did, you're living on a main street. But this is after moving, and therefore, it's one more thing. And it is, I can confirm, living there, it's a problem.
Questions? No questions? Don't think I have any questions. Does anybody else have any questions for Sally Rogers?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your presentation. Can I then move to Sam?
Yep. Before I start, would anyone like a copy to read while I? So, I would like to put forward my case against the licensing application primarily on the first 3 licensing objectives set out in the Licensing Act of 2003, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and prevention of public nuisance. On the prevention of crime and disorder, Ox Street and surrounding areas have already seen a worrying number of crimes, with 31 cases of antisocial behaviour, 21 cases of criminal damage and arson, 13 drug-related incidences, and 67 cases of violence and sexual offences as reported by the Thames Valley Police in June 2024 alone. The addition of another licensed premises selling alcohol would likely lead to an increase in such crimes, as alcohol consumption often contributes to disorderly and criminal behaviour. With these figures already so high, granting this licence could put further strain on local law enforcement and increase the risk of violence and disorder towards residents. Around town, I've already heard reference to the Earl of Abingdon as a replacement for the Grapes, formerly situated at 28 High Street, which recently closed. from my own experience and others I've spoken with, it's a very common sight to see police cars, fights, distressed patrons, and antisocial behaviour outside this form of venue. While walking past the grapes during a police incident, the patron even remarked to me that this behaviour will be moving down there with reference to the Earl of Abingdon. Moving a similar venue closer to more residential area doesn't bode well for the quality of life of the residents who will have to live with the fallout. As a resident, I've already witnessed the arrest of a violent, drunk and disorderly man immediately outside my front door. In relation to public safety, June 2024 crime statistics show an alarming number of criminal activities, including 2 cases of bicycle theft, 9 cases of shoplifting, 3 vehicle crimes, and 3 cases of robbery. Furthermore, there was 1 case of possession of a weapon reported during the same period. The risk of public safety would likely increase with another licensed bar. We're allowed to operate late into the night, bringing more patrons who may engage in reckless and dangerous behaviour after consuming alcohol late into the night. The local community should not be subjected to the heightened risk of crime, and the local council should consider the cumulative impact of a new licensed premises on crime and public safety in residential areas. To strengthen this claim, I'd like to present a recent study undertaken by the Northumbrian University. The study is titled Pubs and Pints, Crims and Crimes, Exploring the Relationship Between Public Houses and Crime. This was presented by Cabraz et al. In 2023. The paper presented statistically significant results that indicated the presence of pubs progressively relates to the higher incidence of major crimes when transitioning from a rural to an urban area, mainly due to the weaker levels of community cohesion and a lack of resource to support formal policing in more urbanized centres. Their economic models identify a statistically significant positive relationship between the number of pubs and specific types of crimes, specifically violence without injury, damage and arson, theft and sexual offences. Depending on the level of urbanity or rurality, supplying evidence in view of design and developing policies and initiatives aimed at increasing the effectiveness of policing at the local level. The inclusion of CCTV and a door supervisor and the incident log are a heartening addition to the application, and if successful, I hope to see them implemented and their continued implementation be monitored by the responsible governing bodies. On the matter of preventing public nuisance by the Noise Act in 1996, now amended to the Antisocial Behaviour Act in 2003, this allows councils to impose penalties on venues and requires venues to reduce the noise that may affect residents. From personal experience with the brewery tap, as a regular live music venue on Ox Street, we have recorded and reported no less than 20 cases of public disturbance beyond 11 p.m. And we've even recorded noise above 80 decibels in our residence and have seen multiple cases of the doors being left open beyond 9 p.m. during hot weather when live music is being played. This has been formally reported to the council on occasion to the police. However, when discussing the matter with a member of the council, we were told the brewery tap was here first, and they have a license to play music until 2 a.m, so we have little recourse for change. Discussion with staff at the venue has been equally unsatisfying. As this venue is being introduced into a now established residential area, we hope to impose more stringent limitations on possible noise pollution from a venue aiming to play live music in an established residential area, so as to prevent the residents from 3 to 39 Ox Street, many of which are listed incorrectly as offices and premises in the submission provided, to prevent them being flanked now by 2 such venues playing music late into the night. To strengthen these claims, I would like to cite some previous legal precedent on the matter. The case of R on the application of Westminster City Council versus Middlesex Crown Court, EWHC 2993. In this case, highlighted the responsibility of local authorities to strike a balance between promoting economic activity through licenses and preventing public nuisance. The local council and residents argued that the club's late night operation resulted in an increased level of noise, public disorder, and safety risk to residents. Residents highlighted the ongoing disturbances such as rowdy behaviour and criminal activity around the club. The second one is the residents of York City Centre versus the York Licensing Committee in 2010. This case dealt with the noise and public nuisance caused by a late night venue and emphasise the need for licensing authorities to give weight to the cumulative impact of new licensed premises on public disorder and nuisance. The residents presented evidence on how similar venues had led to noise pollution, litter, and an increase in public disorder, making the area uninhabitable for families and vulnerable populations. The final case is the Hope and Glory Public House Limited versus the City of Westminster Magistrates Court in 2011, EWCA Civ 31. This case dealt with a public house in Westminster applying for a variation in its license to extend its hours. Local residents raised objections, citing concerns about increased noise, disturbance, and public disorder. The residents argued that extending the hours would lead to an increase in late night disturbances, including noise and antisocial behaviour, which would be detrimental to their quality of life. The end
Thank
of
you
my
for that presentation. Very comprehensive presentation, thank you. Do we have any questions? Firstly from the licensing judge, firstly from the panel, sorry. Licensing.
No questions from me, thank you.
Do you have any questions in this stage? Well, thank you again for no further questions. I think that concludes the presentations. Presentation stage of this panel, so I'll now move on to the final submission stage and ask each party if they wish to summarise their views before we go to close the session to make a decision. So would anybody, other party who's spoken, like to make a concluding statement summarising their case?
Licensing, what should we go with the licensing officer?
Yes, I was just asking, but does anybody else want to?
I'm sure Mr. Payne will want to.
Yes, I suspect. Yes, yes, I was asking for any general, you were indeed, sir.
Yeah, I can make that as well.
So can I?
I'll make the final statement as well.
Yes, yeah. So with the licensing officer now, I'd like to make a.
Chair, thank you.
No. The applicant, would you like to?
Well, I believe the applicant's going last.
Yeah.
You've already heard Mr. Hall would like to make.
It goes in reverse.
Right, so, yes, so would you like to?
Oh, sure. So as a final argument, I would strongly urge the council to take the cumulative impact of such a venue into account on the grounds of exacerbating the already established problems I have set out surrounding the noise, crime and public safety in the local residential area. And to consider the previous legal precedent, statistics and research I have put forward which supports the case. I would like to bring attention to the incorrect definition of residential properties as offices and premises in the provided application. If a license is to be granted, I would strongly encourage the council to consider the livelihood, well-being and mental and physical health of the nearby residents, and at least to modify the license to limit the ability to conduct licensable activities from up to and beyond 2 AM to a more reasonable and social arrangement to prevent the repetition of existing problem with other established venues in the area. I would also ask the council to provide a mechanism by which residents can hold the venue accountable if they falter on their proposed commitments to keep noise to a minimum. For example, closing doors after 9, controlling noise as patrons leave the premises, etc.
Thank you. So, the applicant
Did involve the whole project. Did you want to?
So, yeah, our concerns remain that there are residential properties in close proximity, and we feel that the proposed hours for licensable activities, in particular live and recorded music, as well as amplifying sound, may disturb local residents. Given the lack of information on the acoustic performance of the building, we have concerns about its suitability for the activities proposed without additional soundproofing. The acoustic performance of the premises should be assessed, and any necessary noise control measures designed and installed beforehand to limit noise outbreak from the premises and prevent a public nuisance from occurring. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any closing remarks before I pass the applicant's closing remarks?
I think there's but one person, but no. Chair, I'll take that as the ball being handed to me, or the bat, as the case may be. Chair, you will be fully aware that each case has to be considered on its merits, and that is very true in this particular circumstance. You will also be aware that when you consider an application, you look at what measures are proposed to promote the licensing objectives. That's the task that you have. Will this premises promote the licensing objectives? It's not will there be problems, although that does factor into your consideration, but you're looking at what is being promoted. Well, what is being promoted here is a comprehensive pack of conditions which have been agreed with the police, who take the lead on issues of crime and disorder, and has taken account of the conditions that have been proposed by environmental health. Now, I did say that I was going to come to the one point which is of contention in the conditions proposed by environmental health. But I need to point towards the condition, which I think is 8 on the schedule that we have provided you, which neatly wraps up the whole of this issue about noise from the premises. I could have asked a question of those objecting. Well, if this premises didn't cause you any disturbance, would you still object? I didn't do that. I didn't want to put the objector under any pressure on answering such a question. But the fundamental point in relation to those living in the vicinity is, in my submission, will they be disturbed by what happens at these premises? Given that you've already heard that there was an event over the weekend, you've had no reports that that caused any particular issues. Condition 8 on our schedule that we propose is the management of the premises should ensure that no noise shall emanate from premises or vibration transmitted through the structure of the premises, which gives rise to undue disturbance amounting to a nuisance to local residents or businesses. Basically, if you want to operate in this premises, if you attach this condition, you're saying, if you want to operate in this premises, don't disturb those people living nearby. But otherwise, carry on with what you want to do. If you don't cause a problem to the local residents, we don't have a problem with you. That's what this condition is saying. And it wraps up all of those other conditions that are being proposed by environmental health. Now, to turn to this condition about carrying out a survey, there are circumstances where, yes, it's a sensible thing to have a survey done and to have it considered. And normally the role would be one of the licensing committee to consider that report. Now, why would it be the licensing committee that has to consider that? It's because of some case law that happened, started back in 1926 with, 1921, with a case called Ellis and Dubowski. Now, that considered a license. In fact, that was actually to do with the playing of films or showing of films. And it considered that it was not possible to delegate the approval process to anyone other than the licensing committee. There's one exception to that nowadays, and that is the British Board of Film Classification, because they've been established by law. There is that process. But in relation to noise and approval of reports, there is no statutory authority for an approval process. Now, why is that? Because such a process would also need to involve a case of appeal. What would happen, let me put you in this situation, what would happen if a report was produced and environmental health, for whatever reason, refused to approve it? Or indeed did approve it, but didn't get round to approve it? I'm sure this wouldn't be the case in a year and a half's time. That would be a ridiculous situation, and it would leave the premises unable to trade. That is not an acceptable situation. I was slightly flippant when I said a year and a half, but that is not without some precedent, because a year and a half is the time period that I have seen one particular licensing authority actually issue a license. It does happen. So what we say is, as far as the conditions proposed by environmental health, they are fine, as we've set out in the email that you will have seen, apart from this first condition. But it is entirely superseded by condition 8, or I think it was condition B or something on the environmental health officer's memo, which is don't cause a problem to your neighbours. If we can't cause if we don't not cause a problem to our neighbours, and that means not playing music in the premises, that's what we're going to have to do. Condition A is entirely irrelevant. Now, it would not be irrelevant if that other condition didn't exist. That's the only point that a noise survey would be beneficial. You've been asked to consider cumulative impact, and therein is a knotty subject and a complicated subject. You do not have any special cumulative impact policy in the area. I would ask that you put yourself out of that issue out of your mind, because you have not had any evidence from the police that there is a point where granting another license would undermine the licensing objective. That's what you're looking at here. Would granting the license here undermine the licensing objectives? Would they bring Abingdon tumbling down into crime and disorder? Well, quite clearly they wouldn't. In fact, granting a license at this venue would have potentially a positive effect. You've seen conditions about door supervision in an area where door supervision doesn't exist. You've seen a condition about CCTV in an area where there is no requirement for CCTV at the moment. Opening a premises, having people there, having lighting there, could bring positive benefits to the issues that have already been described and already need to be addressed. The fundamental point, though, is can you be confident on the application you've seen, which has by and large been accepted by the responsible authorities? And you've heard there's no representation from planning, there's no representation from the fire authority, no issue with child protection. All those issues are dealt. Can you be satisfied that this license, if granted, will uphold the licensing objectives? Yes, it will. Now, I'm also conscious about the suggestion about what happens if it doesn't, and that was made by Mr. Hall. Well, there is the process of review, and quite clearly, if this premises did not comply with those conditions, it opens itself up to prosecution, but it also opens itself up to review, bringing back the whole license back to the authority to be reconsidered again, reconsidered afresh in some respects. Now, my clients are fully aware of the law in relation to the licensed premises. They've got experience of running these premises. And what you have is a package which is comprehensive and deals with those issues. So for that reason, what we ask is that the license be granted in amended terms that have been applied for, and that condition in relation to having to produce a superfluous, in my submission, and also unlawful report is not imposed. Chair, I hope that assists you. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you. Please kindly invite everybody to state if they had a fair opportunity to put their respective cases to the panel.
Is it possible to respond to any of the statements you just made?
No, I think
No,
at this
there's final
stage,
statements.
these are closing statements. Very well, we will now make our decision, and this shall be done privately with only the members, the Democratic Services Officer and the Legal Officer present. If the panel intends to clarify any point, they may call all the attendees back into the meeting. During this time, parties are asked to wait in the reception area, and they will be collected and brought to the room when the decision is ready to be delivered. If any attendee is unable to be contacted, the panel will, after reasonable attempts have been made, read the decision out and send an email to any absent party with the decision. I ask you all
You will be
that.
contacted as you need.
Could you work across the screen, please?
Is this true?
Screen, please. As in, just put the page up.
Okay, thank you everyone for returning. Following discussion with my fellow panel members, I can confirm that a decision has been reached. The panel hereby grants the application for a premises licence for Coxter House, 21 to 27 Ox Street, Abingdon, as applied for but amended by the applicant as follows. So the timing is now from 0800 to 0200 on Friday and Saturday, from 0800 to midnight on a Sunday through to Thursday. An additional hour when the clocks change from GMT to British summertime, and for up to 15 occasions a year to be permitted to show live sporting events outside of the permitted licensing hours. The licence is subject to mandatory conditions under the Act, conditions contained within the operating schedule. And there's quite a lot of detail here about the digital CCTV systems, which I won't go into because I think they're all agreed.
It's the wording as modified by, to make them, taking them out of the operating schedule and as set out by the licensing authority, and that actually set out within your additional information.
In the additional information, that's fine. Yes, thank you.
The specific condition which doesn't quite agree with what you want is that no regulated entertainment or activity exempt under the Live Music Act 2012 should take place in the premises until an acoustic survey has been carried out and submitted to the licensing authority by an independent person who is qualified to be at least an associate member of the Institute of Acoustics, and the management of these premises shall devise and implement and submit to the licensing authority a written noise management policy taking into account the recommendations of the acoustic survey. The noise management policy shall be made available upon request to an authorised officer of the Council, Environment, Health and Thames Valley Police. During any live music, recorded music and regulated entertainment, or in any case after 2100, all external doors, including lobby doors and windows to the premises, shall remain closed other than for access and egress. During operating hours, the DPS or a nominated representative shall be available to receive and respond to nuisance-related complaints. A contact number shall be readily available to residents upon request. The DPS or nominated staff shall monitor customers outside in the smoking area to ensure noise is kept to a minimum so as not to cause nuisance to residents. And consider the licensing officer's report and accompanying documentations and heard a submission from the applicant's representative. Panel considered the written and oral evidence of all parties and the relevant provisions of the Act and Secretary of State's guidance issued under Section 182 of the Act and the Council's licensing policy. The panel also considered what would be reasonable and proportionate having regard to the Act and associated regulations and guidance, promotion of the licensing objectives and the Council's licensing policy. But panel also had regard to the public sector equality duty in reaching their decision. The panel only considered evidence relevant to the licensing regime and the promotion of the licensing objectives. The panel did not take account of non-regulated activities, any activities not within control of the premises or those which were not relevant to the licensing objectives. The panel considered the issues raised by the representations made in response to the applicant, noting in particular the concerns relating to the panel was satisfied that the applicant's operating schedule and operating plan demonstrated how the four licensing objectives would be promoted. And the panel also took into account the fact that the trading standards in Thames Valley Police had made no objection.
Right, okay. Sorry. And we seem to be reading on a lot more.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Consequently, the panel consider the conditions consistent with the operating schedule as modified, conditions requested by the environmental health and agreed by the applicant together with the additional conditions were sufficient to promote the licensing objectives. Please be aware that the full decision notice will be sent out to attendees once it has been processed. This document will be sent out electronically unless a paper copy is requested. All parties have a right to appeal the decision made today. Any appeals should be made to the Magistrates Court within 21 days of receipt of the decision notice. Before I formally close the meeting, are there any outstanding questions for myself or officers?
Chairman, I'd quite like to clarify that first condition you read about the survey. As if Mrs. Cummins has got a note of that, I can do that outside. I'd just like to make a note of the actual wording, because of course, after this hearing concludes, the license is granted, trading can commence. So I'd just like to get that wording so that we can be clear on what that actually says.
Yes.
You haven't noted that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is now closed at 13:16.
Susie, can we close, please?